following show is controversial and contains content you may find offensive. Listener discretion is advised.
98 FM's
Dublin Talks.
Dublin Talks with Adrian Kennedy.
It's Tuesday morning, Tuesday, October 23rd, 2018. How are you this morning? I'm Adrian Kennedy, and between now and midday today, this is 98 FM's Dublin Talks. It's the mid-morning talk and phone-in show for Dublin, by Dublin, and about Dublin. Now, we have a lot of stuff coming up on this morning's programme, including in a while I'll be talking to Shane Phelan from the Herald about that horrific rape story involving a Spanish student who was raped viciously on the site of the old glass bottle company down Rings End direction. We'll be hearing what happened to this girl at the hands of another a scumbag. It's the only word I can describe Owen Barclay as. This is a guy who gave a Nazi salute to journalists outside court. This is sort of... anyway, we'll talk about him a little bit later on. We all have little memories that we cherish about our grandparents. And I was reading a great story earlier on about some of the little memories that you have. Your grandparents could be long since passed away, but we all have a... little memory about our grandparents. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. The argument on the petition over that little boy in Bray, 9-year-old Eric. He was born in Ireland. He has never even left the country. He goes to school in St. Cronan's in Bray. And over 50,000 people have signed a petition for him and his mam to be allowed to stay in this country because he just knows no different. He's not an Irish citizen, but he's also not a Chinese citizen. So he's kind of caught in a limbo here, that if he went back to China, he probably wouldn't even be able to access education. We're going to be asking whether or not exceptions should be made in cases like that, despite the fact that the government have said that they have no plans to change the current laws. And we've a lot more besides. Between now and midday today, and live from Dublin City Centre, this is 98 FM's Dublin Talks. Now, first on the programme today, my 5-year-old son picked up a bloody syringe outside our flats. They were the words of Dublin mum Danielle, who lives in Greek Street flats. She joins me on the line now. Danielle, welcome to 98 FM.
Hey, Adrian.
So, Danielle, tell me what happened.
It's actually me daughter that's 5.
Oh, yes.
She came in one of the days last week, and we were in my mother's home, and she came in with a blood-filled syringe, and the spike was on top of the barrel, but there was no lid on top of it, and she just said that she didn't want any other children to pick it up. Now, we've, our resident associations, they're great, they are. They've had, everything done in our community. They've had gates put up on our flats, everything. And these addicts, they keep coming in and out through the flats. They've had a shed built at the flat up the top where Layla actually found the syringe full with blood. Now, I took her to the hospital and everything, and she got the injection thing. But it's disgraceful the way, we're trying to build a community around here, and then you have the likes of these people coming in, they're off the streets, just breaking our gates, doing all this. Do you have injection centres for that? Why has, they had got injection centres and they're doing...
Well, the injection centre hasn't opened yet, but yes, I take your point. There is no... So basically, Greek Street flats are a lovely flats complex, I have to say. It really is a lovely flats complex. And so your 5-year-old came across this blood-filled syringe. Did it actually prick her?
No, it didn't prick her at all.
Thank God, yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank God.
But the point
is... one of the lucky ones, because our friend that's 4... he picked up a tablet a few months prior, and he had to be pumped out in Temple Street. He was after taking a Lyrica.
Oh my God.
Tablet. And my 5-year-old was after telling his parents about that. They wouldn't have known anything about it until because I have it drilled into her brain that she's not to pick up anything off the ground, and I'd show her dirty needles that's been left lying around and everything.
It's awful that you even have to teach a 5-year-old stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like, we have like a great community around here. They have people coming in to talk to children about the danger of it.
So these were drug addicts. You say that the flats themselves have gates outside to stop people just wandering in off the street. But these drug addicts continue to come into the flats, continue to take their drugs inside the flats complex, and then just discard their needles for young kids to potentially pick up.
Right beside the playground, it was actually in the playground where kids play.
Now, that has to leave you scared to let your child out playing.
Oh, I was devastated. Like, we were devastated about it. I couldn't get over it because, like, the kids can't go out and play in the flats anymore. Like, we have gates. The addicts keep breaking the gates to get in to do what they're doing. Only for my brother, he discarded the needle. He went up to the back of the playground and he found like all the paraphernalia stuff underneath the shed where they've been using their drugs. And they obviously can see that there's a playground beside it. It's basically on the playground.
Right, so what is your message to any of the drug addicts that hang around that area, that go into Greek Street flats because they've nowhere else to go or think they've nowhere else to go and shoot up and take their drugs beside a kid's playground? What is your message to people like that who clearly don't give a damn?
Well, to the addicts that don't give a damn, maybe they don't have children, but our flats is full of children. And if they're going to be doing the likes of that, to discard their needles and whatever other paraphernalia that they use properly, they can drop their needles back to Merchant's Quay. There's a place over there where they can drop them back or put them down ashore or in a bin house, like children of the age of 5 can't. Like, it could have been a different story. My child is 5. If she'd been pricked by that, it was like full with blood. So if she'd been pricked by that, I know, like, if it's HIV, when it hits the year after so long, the HIV is dead. But hepatitis isn't. You know, like, hepatitis stays airborne for so long. So if she'd been pricked by that, like, it could have been a complete different story.
And that is, this is the whole thing about this. I've never, ever understood how any drug addict can just throw away a needle knowing the potential dangers of them. And forget about even hepatitis or HIV. Just even a child being pricked by one is just... Yeah. It really is. So your message is please, please, please stop.
Yes, to please just stop and discard them properly. Because they obviously know if they're coming into a flats complex that there's like children in here. Like, they can obviously see the playground, like our community and the residents association, like, they're out from early morning to late at night trying to get everything done for our flats. And yeah, then you have the likes of these people coming in, discarding blood, like it was actually full with blood. And my poor child says to me, she turns around and says, because I said, well, you were told not to pick anything like that up. And she says that she didn't want any other child to pick it up. Now, she had it by the end of the barrel. But still, that doesn't, like, my child shouldn't have to be going around picking up syringes because these addicts want to dispose of them on the street, like where children have to play.
And like I said, I absolutely despair when I hear of addicts just treating society with such contempt and just not giving a damn.
They don't give a damn. They don't. All they want to do is get their hit in the morning or morning, afternoon, night. They don't care where they discarded that stuff. All
right, but look, it's out there. I'm like I said, I'm always disgusted when I hear stories like that.
It is disgusting. It is, like, you can't even go around by Ormond Square, anywhere like that, and you see them all, like, using needles and everything. And the place, it's swamped with it. It is. It's actually vile, it is. And for a 5-year-old child to pick up a blood-filled syringe, I was disgusted, I was. And to be honest, Adrian, if I'd got if I'd have found the person that was up there that day, I thought his life wouldn't have been worth living. He or she, their life wouldn't have been worth living.
I don't blame you, I have to say. I really don't.
I was so angry, I was.
All right, well, look, and how is little Layla?
She's grand now. There's not a bother on her.
Okay, well, thank God.
Sometimes.
Thank God, as they say.
That is okay. But like as I said about a friend like that picked up the Lyrica tablet, like Layla was lucky in that sense that it didn't prick her. That child had to be pumped out, and that was in the flats complex as well. You know, like the community and the resident association around here, like they're the best around here. They do anything for anybody. And then you have the likes of these addicts coming in thinking that they can do what they like. They've been put off the block I don't know how many times even before we got the gate.
Well, like I said, it's out there. I mean, you're kind of appealing to people who just don't give a damn anyway. But we are again appealing to any drug addicts who might be using drugs around the Greek Street Flats area. Please be careful about where you put your bloody needles, for God's sake, and have a bit of respect.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean.
Because the next time they might not be so lucky, the children, do you know what I mean? Like, what has it to take now for, like, one of our kids to catch HIV or hepatitis C or...
Well, like I said, I mean, somebody just sent a message in. The drug users don't give a damn about society because they don't give a damn about themselves, so why should they care? And they don't, and unfortunately, it's sad to say that they don't, but they just don't. Well, look, it's out there, and maybe if even one drug addict thinks twice about where they throw their needles in the future, that will be a good thing. Thanks very much indeed for talking to us, Danielle. Now, another parent has been in contact with us about something else that's really annoying her. And this is a lady that spoke to Jeremy on the show a couple of weeks back, and her name is Natalie. Natalie, welcome to 98 FM.
Hello, hello, Adrian, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Natalie. Natalie, you were on to us a couple of weeks ago about something that happened to your daughter, who is a wheelchair user. What were you on about a couple of weeks back, because I wasn't here?
Yeah, about on the 13th of September, she was refused by a Dublin bus because there was a buggy on the wheelchair bay.
Okay.
And she was refused, and she was with a friend, and they were left on the side of the road to get the next bus.
She was left at the side of the road to get the next bus because somebody on the bus was using the bay for a buggy.
That's correct, and they wouldn't fold up the buggy.
And from what I understand, the exact same thing happened again yesterday.
More or less the same thing happened again yesterday. She was getting the bus on the Kylemore Road, on the Kylemore Road to home in Cedarbrook in near Park West, and she was refused again because there were 3 people standing on the wheelchair bay and somebody sitting down. Oh, I can't take you because there's too many people on the bus.
So hang on for 1 second. So on this occasion, that particular section of the bus, which is downstairs just inside the door, is meant to be used for either buggies or for wheelchairs. But you're saying that yesterday she was refused onto the bus because there was people standing there.
Standing there, yes, and they wouldn't let my daughter on, which is in a wheelchair with her friend.
Wow.
Yeah, so I rang Dublin Bus yesterday, and I said, and yes, it's happened in five and a bit weeks, the same thing again. So I'm just utterly annoyed, do you know what I mean? Because she's trying to make her own way in a wheelchair to school and back. She doesn't want her mummy or her daddy there to be with her.
What age is she, Natalie?
She's 12.
She's 12.
She's only first year.
Okay, but she's trying to be independent, go about her own life, get from A to B all by herself, which is fantastic. And then she gets refused on a bus because people are standing in the wheelchair bay.
Standing in the wheelchair bay. There's only 3 people standing. The lady looked back and said, oh, you can't get on this bus because there's people standing.
As opposed to telling the people who are standing here, shift.
Yes, that's correct, yes.
And the answer from Dublin Bus was what?
The answer said, well, the driver, it was a lady driver, said, well, she asked them to move. Well, she didn't even say anything. She just said, my daughter couldn't get on the bus because there was people standing there. And I said, at least you could have taken the people to get off the bus and let my daughter on and they can go back on. I said, yeah, they should have done that.
But
me telling them what to do instead of them fixing the situation.
But the bus driver didn't tell the people who were standing in the wheelchair bay to move.
No, they didn't. No, she didn't.
And nor did the people the ignorant pigs in the wheel standing there. They didn't voluntarily move.
No, they didn't voluntarily move. So my daughter and a friend, lucky enough she was with a friend, do you know what I mean? But that doesn't, do you know what I mean? So, no, they didn't move at all. You have to get the next bus.
And do you know how full the bus was?
My daughter said it wasn't that full. There was only 3 people standing and there were seats at the back of the bus.
Okay, so there was plenty of room for the people that were standing there to move.
That's correct, yes.
And neither the bus driver nor the people themselves moved out of the wheelchair bay for your daughter to come on up the ramp onto the bus and park in the wheelchair bay.
No, they didn't even bother moving, or the bus driver didn't bother saying anything to them.
So it's bad enough that somebody with a buggy wouldn't bother their arse to fold up the buggy. This is even worse again.
It is even worse again, yes. And my daughter was saying, this is the second time it's happened. I want to get the bus myself. I don't want you or Daddy. Well, Daddy will be at work, but you to bring me to work. It's coming to a stage that I will have to bring her to work, and I just ran the buggy on. Do you know what I mean? The wheelchair on.
I know, but she's only, how old? She's 12.
She's only 12.
Yeah, you can't expect her to start screaming and shouting to demand to get on the bus. But
no, and then he just actually just closed. Her friend was going to say something, and she just closed the door and just went on ahead.
That is unbelievable. I find that really shocking. I find it shocking for 2 reasons. One is that the bus driver didn't bother her arse to ask the people to move. But secondly, the people standing there, because I get the bus every day, so I know exactly where we're talking about. People standing there would clearly see that a person in a wheelchair isn't being allowed on because they're standing there.
That's correct, yes. Yeah.
Well, stay there for 1 second, because, Mark, you are a Dublin bus driver.
I am.
What did you want to say on Natalie's story?
Well, it's hard to say. I actually feel sorry for that lady there because we actually, unfortunately, we have a rule in place there regarding buggies and wheelchairs. And the way it works, Adrian, is if there's a buggy on the bus and I'm driving the bus, all we can do is ask if that buggy, the lady or the man, and whoever's person with the buggy is on the bus already and the wheelchair approaches, we have to ask them, are they willing to follow the buggy? If they say no, because they're forced on, there's nothing we can do. Our hands are tied.
And can I ask you, Mark, how often do people do that? That they would just, if you have a child in a buggy, it's easy to hold the child in your arms and fold up the buggy. How often do people say, nah, let the person in the wheelchair stay there?
Jerry, I swear to God, as a bus driver with young kids, I know how hard it is for mothers and fathers trying to get around. Even if it's not a wheelchair and it's another buggy trying to get on. Or especially if it's a wheelchair, I'll always ask the person in the buggy, are they willing to fold it? And if they say no, it's too difficult, I'll offer to help them as well. And if it's a thing where they say no, they have the entitlement, unfortunately, ahead of the wheelchair because they got on the bus first. Now, I'll always call the controller then and ask where the next available bus is and try to give an accurate time for the wheel. I wouldn't just leave the person in the wheelchair stranded and say, no, sorry, the person in the buggy is not. But I'd always put on them that people can hear it as well, you know.
Okay, so
some of them are just too lazy to fold it and they won't fold it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I've seen it happen myself and it's so annoying. You think you're ignorant pig. But, okay, so first come, first served. How many buggies can be put into the bay?
But there's only one officially. It's to do with health and safety, to do with insurance reasons as well.
Right.
It's only one. The newer buses have two. We have one behind the stairs and we have the wheelchair bay. One is for the buggy and one is for the wheelchair.
Right.
So if there's two buggies in, the first buggy goes into the buggy bay, the second buggy goes into the wheelchair bay. If a wheelchair user arrives at the next stop and that person is in the wheelchair bay, if they don't, we can actually put them off the bus. That's the way it works. But the older buses that only have the one wheelchair
say that again, Mark. So in the newer buses that have two bays, one for a buggy, one for a wheelchair, if there's somebody in the wheelchair bay with a buggy, you can actually throw them off.
Like in hindsight, like it's not, you wouldn't actually physically throw them.
No,
off.
I know, but you can ask them to.
You tell them, listen, there's a wheelchair space here for a reason, and there's a buggy bay. Unfortunately, somebody's already in the buggy bay ahead of you, and you chose to go here. So now, if a wheelchair trying to board the bus, so I'll knock off the engine, I'll get out by all means.
Okay, so the wheelchair in those newer buses gets priority.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
and you see the people that were standing in that wheelchair bay?
Yes.
That boils my blood. I'm nearly 15 years driving the bus now, and there's no way on earth I would have let that bus go by that bus stop without that young girl getting on that bus in that wheelchair. They would have been told to sit down. If they refused to sit down, they would have been removed from the bus. Simple as.
Well, fair play to you, Mark, but unfortunately, the bus driver that was driving the bus that Natalie's daughter was trying to get onto didn't do that, and just literally left the girl standing there, or sitting there in her chair waiting to get on the bus. I'm shocked that the driver did nothing. I'm also shocked, Mark, that the people standing there did nothing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, you see, when I say it to the person, if a person refuses, if I've only one, if they get on at the first stop on a wheelchair, unfortunately gets on at the second stop, well, tries to board the bus on the second stop, they have the priority, as I said. I'll always put it on them, and I'll raise my voice in that way, not shout with them, but I'll actually raise my voice so other people are aware of it as well, that I'm actually trying my best to allow the wheelchair user to get on the bus.
Right, okay.
You know what I mean? Because as you said, the young girl is 12 years of age. She wants her own bit of independency. She wants to, feel like she can do everything on her own, which is a great thing as well, So the last thing you want to do is knock her confidence, because she'd be afraid to go to the bus stop.
Absolutely. And like we said, this is the second time. But Natalie, what bus was this? What bus route was this?
It was on the 79A.
The 79A. At what bus stop?
Yeah. On the Carnmore Road, the 2654 bus stop.
All right, but look, you've heard Mark, he wouldn't have allowed that to happen. I'm raging for you that particular driver did let it happen with people standing there. All I can say is to pass on our regards to your daughter, that she continues to fight for her independence. She shouldn't have to fight for her independence to get on a bloody bus.
No,
she shouldn't have to.
Age, do you know what I mean?
It's an awful story.
Now it's coming to a stage that I can see her. If it happens again, she won't go by Dublin bus. I will have to bring her to school.
And as somebody said, that driver should be sacked for doing that. You only contacted us a couple of minutes ago, so we haven't been in a position to get a statement out of Dublin Bus, but we will follow up on this and we will try and get answers on this, Natalie.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian, because it's just making my blood boil.
No, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all.
In last month and this month, it can happen again next month and next month and the month next. So then eventually she won't want to go. No.
I can see how that would happen. Look, Natalie, we're going to follow up on this today, and we'll have an update for you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Natalie. This is 98 FM's Dublin Talks. On the way in just a moment, and my apologies to Shane Phelan from the Herald for holding on the line so long. I want to talk about that horrific rape story from Ringsend last year. Don't go away.
98 FM's Dublin Talks.
With Des Kelly Interiors. New carpets fitted in time for Christmas. DesKelly.ie.
98 FM.
A young Spanish woman has told a court she believed she was going to be killed during a 21-hour rape ordeal while she visited Ireland last summer. In a moving victim impact statement, the student said she still wakes up at night scared, no longer trusts male friends, and can't walk to college on her own as a result of what happened to her. She said that after the attack by Owen Barkley, she did not want to live, and that he had stolen all of the confidence she previously had. The experience I went through was terrifying, she said. To tell us more about this, I'm joined on the line now by the man who's been following the story for the Herald and the Independent. Shane Phelan joins us on the line. Shane, welcome to 98 FM.
Good morning.
Shane, this is an horrific rape case. If anyone I've ever read about, this is definitely up there. Bring me back to the day this horrific attack happened in July of last year.
So this young woman, she was 18 at the time. She had arrived in Dublin in early July last year. She had planned to stay for a month to learn English, improve on her English, and she was doing a course. And as part of that, she was staying with a host family in Finglas. And on this particular day that she encountered Owen Barkley, she had taken a trip into the city centre to do some shopping. And the sort of shopping a lot of tourists do around Grafton Street and places like that. And she bumped into Barkley at a Lewis stop, and they got talking to each other. And the conversation went along the lines of or got to a point where he told her that there was a beach nearby, and had she ever seen a beach in Ireland, and she said she hadn't but would like to, and she agreed to go with him to Ringsend. Now we heard in court yesterday that she was a very trusting girl. This was probably her first time away from home.
And he obviously came across as a nice gentleman.
Yeah, and he obviously came across in such a way that she, was willing to go with him, didn't think anything was awry. But as soon as he brought her to the old Irish Glass Bottle site where he'd pitched a number of tents, and as soon as they arrived there, she realised that something's up here. His mood changed. He pushed her to the ground. And this was the start of what would turn out to be a 21-hour ordeal during which she was raped 3 times.
21 hours?
Yeah, 21 hours. She was basically trapped.
And this was on the site of, people will be familiar with the site that this happened. This was on the site of the Glass Bottle Company.
Yeah, just off of Pigeon House Road in Ringsend.
And in there, in that site, there wouldn't be anything around it because it's a huge site for people to hear screams or anything. Yeah,
and we heard in court from some of the guards who were investigating this, actually difficult enough to get in. You have to kind of go through a fence, and the footing or the ground underneath isn't entirely stable. So it's not the sort of place that people would be hanging out or frequenting. Quite an isolated, probably as isolated as you could get in Dublin City itself. So some of the details given in court are they're really some of the most harrowing details I've heard in court. I suppose you outlined a lot of her reaction and how it affected her there at the beginning of the item. She says she still wakes up at night scared, can't trust male friends, can't walk to college on her own. She said there's a forest near where she lives, and that she's frightened to go past it. I suppose the implication there is that somebody might drag her into it, or she just feels unsure of herself. She said she had low self-esteem before she came to Ireland, and this has been further dented. She's lost what confidence she had. It's been a real nightmare for her, and it's probably going to have effects for her for a long time to come, if not for the rest of her life.
God love her.
She eventually managed to break free following the 3rd rape. He brought her down to the beach, and he fell asleep. And before this, I suppose she'd been terrified to try and run. He had tied her hands together behind her back with a dog lead. He'd threatened to bash her head with a rock. He had tried to strangle her on a couple of occasions, or at least put his hands around her neck. And eventually she did manage to break free. When he fell asleep, she ran. She didn't know where she was. And then we got the details of this absolutely terrifying phone conversation she had with her father back in Spain. At this point, her family were worried because her parents were worried because the host family in Finglas, she hadn't turned up for dinner. She hadn't turned up that night. The guards had been contacted, the embassy, the family, and the whole lot. So quite a lot of worry. And then they get this call out of the blue from her, and she's basically screaming down the phone, "I'm going to be killed. I'm going to be killed. I've been kidnapped, and he's killed others. He tried to strangle me. He raped me. I'm scared. I don't know what to do." And we got this account of how her father basically, obviously at his wit's end, was trying to calm her down, get her to focus on a point in the horizon, so she would run in a straight direction and not be running around in circles. And eventually, she managed to find a house. She was knocking on doors. Nobody answered. Then, by complete chance, she knocked on a door which was answered by a Spanish person living in the area, and this obviously was able to communicate with her, and she brought her in, and the guards arrived, and she eventually gave a number of statements to the guards, which recounted in very graphic and horrific detail what had happened to her. And an extraordinary feature of this case is that Berkeley was was brought into custody, he was discovered on the site, by the guards, and they put various things to him. He initially gave a false alibi, and this was quickly disproven by CCTV images, but he still didn't make any admissions while he was being questioned.
But the way in which he eventually made an admission is bizarre in itself.
Yeah, and it's an admission of sorts. He was in a holding cell in the Courts of Criminal Justice here in Dublin, and he basically cut himself and wrote the words "I'm sorry" on the wall of the holding cell in his own blood. And there was other stuff he wrote which was effectively gobbledygook. It's hard to know what he meant by it, but this was described, I suppose, by his own counsel as an apology and an admission, I suppose it was brought up in terms of the idea of mitigation, because the judge is going to have to weigh up a number of factors. We heard a lot about Owen Barclay's own history. Very troubled childhood, no father figure really to look up to, and the court heard that his mother had various difficulties as well.
And I believe a month before the attack, he had been detained under the Mental Health Act, but was subsequently released.
There was a direction that he be held under it, but he was deemed fit. He was deemed fit by a doctor to be released. There's other issues in this case which didn't emerge in court yesterday, but we've previously written about, where we know that there were at least 5 occasions. He had been, he'd been charged with other offences beforehand, and was subject to various bail conditions. And one of those was that he had to stay away from the area around the George pub there at the bottom of George's Street, and where it meets Dame Street. And on 5 occasions, or at least 5 occasions, he would have been observed by various Gardaí in breach of those bail conditions, but he actually wasn't arrested or taken into custody.
And people may recall, this was the same guy who spray painted the front of the George. Is that right?
I think that's correct. Yeah. No, he was acquitted of the charges in relation to that matter. There were a number of missed opportunities.
Yes, indeed. And this is also a guy who, appearing in court on a separate charge, gave a Nazi salute to photographers outside the court.
He did, and he would have been seen, I suppose, exhibiting eccentric behaviour, to put it mildly, around Dublin city centre. He was seen walking around in a raccoon onesie at one point. God love this poor girl in Ireland for a month, and she happens to be the unfortunate victim of a 21-hour rape ordeal on the site of the Glass Bottle Company in Ringsend. Listening to her victim impact statement, it will have a devastating effect on the rest of her life. He is to be sentenced next Thursday, the 1st of November. What's the judge likely to hand down here? Well, we don't really know. He hasn't given us any insight into his thinking thus far, and look, he said he needed to carefully consider submissions he had heard. There has been Berkeley's own counsel, has fronted up and basically said, look, this is at the higher end of things. So, we would be expecting quite a substantial prison sentence here. But we don't know,
really
what weight will be given to other factors, such as Barclay's mental health and his state, and I suppose the life he's had thus far. He's had quite a rough life, and obviously none of this excuses what happens.
No, of course,
it does get taken into account in terms of sentencing. And look, we should find out next Thursday what the judge will do.
All right, Shane Phelan, reporter with the Irish Independent and the Herald. Thanks very much indeed for joining us on 98 FM. A horrible story, isn't it? Just a horrible, horrible story. And we wish, this young girl coming to Dublin to study a bit of English for a couple of weeks, and that happens to her. That sadly is the memory she will take away of her time in our little country. Anyway, you're listening to 98 FM's Dublin Talks. I'm Adrian Kennedy. We're here till midday today. On the way after the break, I want to talk to you about, and I want you to text or WhatsApp me right now, and I'll tell you why in a second, about your favourite memory of your time with your grandparents. I have a lovely little story which I'll bring to you straight after the break, and I'd love to hear from you on 6797981. Text or WhatsApp 0877 98 98 98. I want to hear from you about your favourite memory of your time with your grandparents, whether they're still with us or not, however small it might be. Text or WhatsApp me right now to 0877 98 98 98.
98 FM's Dublin Talks.
With Des Kelly Interiors. New wood flooring fitted in time for Christmas. DesKelly.ie.
98 FM.
Social media users have taken to Twitter to share some of their favourite memories of time spent with their grandparents. And if you were fortunate enough growing up to have had your grandparents in your life, we all have very special memories or things that just kind of stick in our heads about our grandparents. Somebody in our office earlier on said my memory of my grandparents is spending time with them in the smoke-filled sitting room. I have to say, my memory is the exact same, to be quite honest. My grandparents, both of whom have passed away, they smoked so much that the ceiling in their sitting room, and it was a tiny little council house, tiny little sitting room, it was all black with drops of tar falling off the roof. It was vile. Anyway, I'd love to hear from you about your favourite memories of your any one of your grandparents. Text or WhatsApp 0877 98 98 98. Mine is, and I will always remember it, every Thursday my granny came up to us to see us every Thursday. She'd arrive up in the afternoon. She'd be there actually when we came home from school, and she'd stay with us until maybe 9 o'clock that evening and then head off home. And every Thursday my granny brought us sweets. And that was the highlight of the bloody week. What's Granny going to bring? And she'd open her bag and we'd get sweets every single Thursday, except during Lent. During Lent, we got no sweets off her, but she saved them all and she gave them to us at Easter. So, they're fond memories that I have. I'd love to hear your fond memories of your grandparents, because they often get overlooked. You know, we talk about our parents, but we don't remember our grandparents as much as maybe we should. Because whether we like it or not, they have an influence on our lives. They really do. So text or WhatsApp 0877 98 98 98. 0877 98 98 98. Grandparents are the best. I was raised by my grandmother. She is a saint and so funny, and without her I would be totally lost, says that message. Sharon, you're on 98 FM. Hiya, Sharon.
Hi, Adrian. How are you?
Sharon, tell me your fondest memories with a grandparent.
Oh, well, first of all, I'm blessed to still have them. And I'm 43. My nana was 90, and my grandfather is going to be 90 early next year.
So there's still hail and hearty and kicking.
Still with us.
Very good.
Brilliant, fantastic. Thank the Lord. Great memories with my granddad. I used to stay there with them all the time, and he used to put me on his back, and he'd run down the stairs shouting Geronimo, and it was just brilliant crack. And even at night time, and I'd be sleeping over, and he used to always kneel down at his bedtime when it was time for bed. He was a great reader, so he'd always kneel down and he'd rub Vaseline in his hands, because his hands are real rough because he worked on a farm, and he'd always give me a little dabble of Vaseline, and we'd say, as we were saying our prayers, we'd be rubbing our hands together. And he was a great gardener. He'd be he'd always have potatoes and sweet peas and all of that. And I remember sitting in the middle of the garden just eating the peas, popping the peas and just eating them. So they were great. They were great times with my granddad and my grandma. My nana, she was a great baker, and Christmas time, baking the puddings, the cakes, and whatever. And I remember one time we were baking the cakes, and they were great. And we mixed in the bowls and whatever, and we put them into the tins, put them into the oven, and then we realised we didn't put any sugar in.
Oh, right.
So then we had to go, so we went in and we got the sugar, or we got the cakes out, and we had to pour the mixture back out of the cakes and pour in sugar and prayed that they would work out okay.
Very good. It is true that, obviously our parents influence our lives, but our grandparents do as well, because a lot of us spent a lot of time with our grandparents growing up. I know my granny used to mind us when my mum and dad went on holidays, or even for a weekend away, she'd always mind us. So we did spend an awful lot of time with her when we were younger.
Yes, definitely.
So they do have an influence on us. Thanks, Sharon. Danielle, what is your favourite memory with a grandparent?
I would actually take this show with memories with my grandparents. My dad's mum, Amy, would have had, everything baked on Sundays when we came down, scones, apple tarts, rhubarb crumble, you name it, she had it baked. And my mum and dad, I've lost my granddad, but I have my nanny. And I have a holiday, it always sticks in my head, from Lanzarote. We all went, and my nanny and granddad came too, and I was 10 at the time, and I don't know what holiday, not everybody gets holidays with their nannies and granddads. And I just really enjoyed that, and that's memories that I'll have forever. Also, I was the first we used to have this laugh and joke with my granddad that I gave him his title because I made him the granddad. And then I was the first one to have grandkids for them. And then I, came and said to him, look, now I've given you another title, I'm the best, I've made you a great granddad. And he'd always turn around to me and say, they always knew I was great. You didn't have to go and have kids to give me the title. But there's just so many memories with him. He used to drop us to school as well. He used to work for EP Minis on the Long Mile Road, and we used to get to play in the cars then before we went to school. There's just, also I wouldn't touch meat only for him, because I used to think it was disgusting, and I'm not a vegetarian or anything. I just freaked me out touching it. And he was the one who made me roll them in for the meatballs in the spaghetti bolognese and stuff. I could go on forever.
Isn't that and it is wonderful to have such fond memories, and we probably don't appreciate them enough when they're actually here. And for people who've lost their grandparents, they kind of wish, I wish. And I know what my granny was very young when she was only 67 when she passed away, which is very, very young in hindsight and all that. Brenda, you're on 98 FM. Hiya, Brenda.
Hiya, how are you?
Now, Brenda, your nephew was christened last year, and the priest was shocked at the amount of grandparents that he has.
Yeah, he had his grandparents on both sides. Then he had his great-grandmothers on both sides, and he had his great-great-grandparents on our side.
Really?
Yeah, and they all had to go up and do the little cross on his forehead. And the church was only tiny, so
God, it must have taken forever with all the grandparents. And what did the priest say?
He just had a face, and he was like, how many grandparents? And then he was looking at me, and he was like, wait, trying to find out who was the grandmothers and who was, yourselves.
So there was grandparents, great-grandparents, and one set of great-great-grandparents?
Yeah.
Wow.
So my nephew he's the fourth great-great-grandchild. And to be honest, he's the fourth great-great-grandchild that I actually know of. And I don't know anybody else who has great-great-grandparents that are still alive.
That's a good question. There aren't too many.
I don't know of anybody who has my great-nanny, who was his great-great-nanny, is the same age as my boyfriend's grandmother, and she has no great-grandchildren, let alone great-great-grandchildren.
Wow. So that's a lot of generations at the one christening. Let's look at the flip side, because Bobby, you are now a grandfather.
Yeah, have been for the last 8 years, and absolutely fantastic. I have 4 grandchildren. We mind one nearly all the time, and all the time we mind one grandchild on and off, and great crack, she's 3 years of age, and she actually made me wife younger by minding her, believe it or not.
She made your wife younger? How?
Yeah, because it gave her more energy and more things to do, and So beforehand she wasn't doing much stuff, but now she's doing loads of stuff for the child, bring her here, bring her there, and fantastic, like, you know.
And I've often heard that having grandchildren, you know, because your own kids have grown up, and you know, and you're getting
But they get older. They never grow up. They get older.
Yeah, they get old. But that's very true, actually. Yeah, I agree with you on that. But yeah, I've often been told I'm not a grandfather myself, but I've often been told that you know, when you do start spending time with the grandchildren, it kind of brings you back and livens you up again.
Absolutely, 100%. It's great, is it? Fantastic.
So you're enjoying. What's the favourite bit of being a grandfather?
I suppose spending time with them. And I mean, beforehand, when you were your own kids, you didn't get time to spend with them because you were working all the time, you know. Where now you make time for your grandchildren. Well, I do anyway, you know. Fair play. All right, good to hear from you. Thanks very much indeed. My favourite memory of my grandfather is he used to take out his teeth after Christmas dinner and lick the plate clean, and we used to copy him. It was so funny. And then he would clean his teeth with his tongue. Ew. That's fairly gross. But we were talking about your favourite memories with your grandparents. I'm so jealous of these great stories. I only had 2 nannies growing up. Both granddads had died before I was born. I so wanted my children to have grandparents like all my friends' kids have, but unfortunately not. My children only have 1 nanny, which is my mum. The other 3 have passed. I really feel they missed out. And it is sad when I know friends of mine when I was a kid, all their grandparents had passed away, and we had all 4 when we were kids. And yeah, it is kind of sad and I think you do miss out something in not having grandparents especially when you're younger. I'm very fortunate at my age, and I still have my gran knocking around at 96. She'll be 97 in a couple of weeks. Now, one last one. Oh, yeah. I have only one good memory of my granddad. He passed away when I was very young. He was always telling me, dress up warm, boy, hat, scarf, jacket and gloves. And this is when I was 5 or 6. And one last one. I love this one. My favourite memory was knocking on my granddad's door, and he would open it a tiny bit and say, there's no one home. We'd all laugh. And as he got older, he developed Alzheimer's, and then he would open the door and say, who are you? He had a great sense of humour. Good stories. Thanks very much indeed. This is 98 FM's Dublin Talks. I'm Adrian Kennedy. We're back in just a moment. Live and exclusive to Dublin's 98 FM, Monday through Friday between 10 and midday. This is Adrian Kennedy. You're with 98 FM's Dublin Talks. And Trish is here with Tuesday's top headlines.
Thanks, Adrian. 2 14-year-old boys accused of the murder of Anna Creedle are set to go on trial next April. The body of the 14-year-old Kildare schoolgirl was found in a derelict building in Lucan last May. The Central Criminal Court heard this morning that the state is looking for a joint trial, that it's a case with a lot of CCTV and forensic evidence and could take over 4 weeks. A 34-year-old man has been charged with the murder of Amanda Carroll in Cabra. The body of the mother of 2 was found at her apartment at Homestead Court on Sunday. Her partner, Sean Nolan of Ashington Crescent, Navan Road in Cabra, appeared before Dublin District Court this morning, charged with her murder. The Taoiseach says the government will repair any structural issues in schools as quickly as possible after problems were found at Ardgillan Community College in Balbriggan. Urgent checks on 30 other schools built by the same construction company have been ordered. And Dublin City Council have rejected plans for the Tara Street Tower for a second time. It was proposed that the tallest tower in the country would house offices, a hotel and a restaurant on the top floor. And now you're up to date on 98.
98 FM's Dublin Talks. Dublin Talks with Adrian Kennedy.
I just got a lovely message this very second, and it reads, it's from James, and it says, Adrian, I have very fond memories of your grandmother. Biggest memories was their smoke-filled sitting room with the slack fire. Also had my first Cadbury's caramel there also. Mrs. Byrne was legendary in our family. And that's from James McKenna. And James, if I'm not mistaken, James and the family, the McKennas, used to live in Wyattville and Loughlinstown, and my granny used to mind them for many, many years. All of the McKennas. In fact, James's sister Nicole came to my Debs. I'm assuming I'm talking about the right person, James. Great to hear from you. And thanks very much indeed for having such fond memories of my granny, because she was a very important part of their family. Lovely message. Now, next on the programme, over 52,000 people have now signed a change.org petition calling on the government to allow a 9-year-old Irish-born child to remain in the country. St. Cronin School in Bray have launched the petition to encourage the Department of Justice to allow young Eric Jijing-Yu, who was born in Ireland, to remain in the country. Now, the government has said that there are no plans to change citizenship laws for children born in Ireland to foreign parents. Justice Minister Charlie Flanagan says the current rules that someone born here to foreign parents does not get automatic citizenship were approved by a majority of the people in a 2004 referendum. Young Eric, who's in 4th class in St. Cronin School in Bray, was born and has lived all his life in Ireland. He's never even left the country, believe it or not. His mother had her application to remain in the state rejected. Now, on the petition site, the school states that Eric is neither an Irish citizen nor a Chinese citizen. And they're concerned that if he returns to China, he will have no access to the country's health or education system because he's not a Chinese citizen either. Because he's never even been in the country. He is of Chinese parents, but he was born out of China and he was born here. And because he was born here and because of our laws here, he doesn't get Irish citizenship either. Now, back in 2004, when we had that referendum, there was this kind of phenomenon of birth tourism where people were arriving into Ireland late in pregnancy and giving birth. And we had a referendum back in 2004 to change the law so that kids in that situation, born in Ireland to parents who literally got off a plane to give birth, didn't automatically become Irish citizens. However, when I hear a story about a young lad who has been born and bred in Ireland, raised in Bray, goes to school in St. Cronin's in Bray, has never even been out of the country. I haven't spoken to the young fella, but I should imagine he has a little Bray accent and everything else because he's born and bred here. Why wouldn't he? And now, a young fella that was born in Ireland 9 years ago is about to be thrown out of the country. 52,000 people have signed a petition. People like the Minister for Health, Simon Harris, have jumped on this one. He's the local TD for Wicklow, so obviously this is of interest to him, although other people giving out yards about him even taking up this case. He took up this case, I assume, because he's the local TD for Wicklow. Anyhow, the question I want to ask you is, do you think it's time for us to review the law? The law that would see a young fella of 9 who's Irish in all but name. He was born and bred here, knows no different than life in Ireland, knows no different than going to school in St. Cronin's and Bray, and he could be thrown out to be sent home to a country that he has never been in, and literally have to start his life all over again. Is that fair? Call me right now on 6797981. And if maybe you feel that perhaps the law should change if a child has been here 5 years or 7 years, or in this case 9 years. Our telephone number is 6797981. You can text or WhatsApp the programme on 0877 98 98 98. John, you're on Dublin's 98 FM. How are you, John?
Not bad, Adrian, yourself?
Good, thank you, John. John, what's your reaction to this story, which has led to over 50,000 people signing a petition to have the government allow this young fella to stay in Ireland? Seems a little bit harsh to be throwing him out of the country.
It's a tough one, Adrian, but the people are saying, you said there yourself that we need to review the law. This law is not an out-of-date law. It's not a law that was put in place along with the Constitution. This law was put in place in 2004.
Correct.
People knew what they were voting for, and they voted in massive numbers, Adrian. I think when I checked the stats, just to get me facts right before I came on, I think it was close to 80%.
Yeah, it was 79%. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so it's not just some shady figures in the corner trying to say get this kid out of Ireland. I mean, people knew what they were voting for back in 2004, and this was inevitably going to happen. Now,
what was happening before that, for people who may not remember, at the time, in the run up to it, there had been an abuse of our system here in Ireland, where there were people, we don't have exact figures, but there were people arriving in Ireland, having babies, and then because those babies were Irish citizens, then they obviously were allowed to stay. So after, in the run-up to 2004, that's what was happening. How much it was happening, I don't know, but it definitely was happening. And then 79% of people in our referendum said, no, we're not having this anymore. So kids born in Ireland to foreign-born parents don't automatically get citizenship. But here's the sad part of this story, John. This young fella also isn't a citizen of China because he wasn't born in China. So he's kind of he'd be sent back to a country that he's never been in. He's never even left Ireland, actually, as it happens. To be sent back to a country that he has obviously his knowledge of, but has never been in.
And it is 100% not his fault. And he is nothing but a pawn in this situation, which is so unfair. His mother knew what she was doing. She knew this risk would come. She knew there was a possibility that she would be asked to leave this country along with her child. She is solely to blame. But then what do we do in that case, Adrian? Do we send the mother back, but we keep the young fella here and we separate them? I mean, I appreciate an awful lot of people signed the petition to keep these people here, but an awful lot more voted on a ballot card to have this law in place. I mean, it's emotions against facts, unfortunately. And you get emotional about it and you think this is a young fella and he should be allowed to stay in the country. But then what does that say to everybody else who wants to do the same? The referendum in 2004 goes out the window and then we just have...
Okay, but is there a case then for reviewing the law so that if a child happens to be in Ireland for example, 5 years or 7 years, or in this young fella's case, 9 years, his entire life is in Ireland. All his friends in school are all Irish. His whole network is in Ireland, and we're going to rip that away from him.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I would. I don't want to say something that I don't know is 100% true, but if we were to change the law, then it would have to go to the people again. I mean, it can't just be a select amount of people signing a petition that gets a law changed. There is a majority of people in this country that need to have their voice as well. And for the people who did sign that, an awful lot more didn't. There's more than 60,000 people in this country, Adrian. You know, and I'm not throwing digs at this family or this child, but there is a process in this country. We have to go through it. We can't just have...
I know, but surely exceptions should be made in the case. And when you see that it was actually the young fella's school who put the petition up on change.org for people to sign, the school itself. So they've seen how this young fella is so well integrated into the school. He's an important student in the school, and the school can clearly see the devastation it's going to cause when he gets ripped out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I can't argue with any of that, but we still can't. I know this is where emotion overflows. You can't let all this get in the way of what we voted for and what we said as a people we want in this country. You know, this is what we asked for. This is what and it wasn't. There was obviously a lot of this happening prior to 2004 for there to be a referendum on it. So people were obviously up to their eyeballs with it, and the mother has to be called into question. The family has to be called into question as to, did you knowingly and willingly come to this country to have a child in order to stay in this country?
And if that's the fact, whatever the reasons,
terrible.
Okay, whatever the reasons, the state has seen fit to issue a deportation order against this family, and because they clearly didn't fit the criteria to be allowed to stay in the country. But in the midst of all of that, okay, the mother is Chinese. She obviously didn't meet the criteria to be allowed to stay, and she's being sent back. But the side effect of that is that the young fella gets dragged away too. And as I said, he's been brought up in Bray. He probably has a little Bray accent and everything else. And yeah, he has to start his life all over again.
Yeah, and that's wholly and completely and utterly wrong. He should never, ever have been in that situation. He never should have been born into a situation where that could be a possibility. But unfortunately, he was. And that's not his fault.
But stay there for 1 second, John, because Daniel, you're disgusted that anyone could even think of having this child thrown out of the country.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a couple of, it's a slippery slope. There's a couple of different issues going on here that are kind of being blurred. We're dealing with an illegal immigration issue versus a naturalization and citizenship issue, which are two totally different things. So going back to this gentleman's point about the law from 2004 being outdated, I'm 31 right now. I was not allowed to vote in 2004 because I wasn't 18. So where's my vote? I'd love to vote on this issue. And another thing is, to say it was an outdated law, in 2004 there was no legal same-sex marriage. The abortion law wasn't overturned, and blasphemy laws were not even spoken about. So it is an outdated law, and things have changed drastically.
Sorry, what he meant by that, Daniel, is it's not an outdated law in that it was brought in 1872. This was brought in just 14 years ago in 2004.
And that's a very valid point, but do you not think that the demographics have changed since that law was brought in 2004?
Do I think people would vote?
Voice of Ireland right now.
Okay, do I think people would vote in a different way? On this one, no, I actually don't.
I don't agree with you on that one. I don't agree with you.
You believe, Daniel, that people would vote differently?
I do.
In the space of 14 years?
Yes, I do, because in the space of 14 years, there are people that were not able to vote back then, me, myself included. Ireland is a much more progressive country right now. It's not the old hiddly-diddly backwards country that we were.
Sorry, Daniel, you're only talking about 14 years ago, 2004. We were in the middle of the Celtic Tiger. We weren't a diddly-squiddly country then.
I don't even remember the Celtic Tiger. I wasn't old enough. That's what I'm trying to say. The country has changed drastically in 14 years.
Okay, yes, I agree. Hang on. I agree it has changed fairly drastically.
Here's some other things as well. Now, Ireland, of all nations, are in no position to be hammered down laws on emigration or immigration. Between 1820 and 1910, 4.7 million Irish people went to America.
Yes, we all know that, Daniel. And in fact, that was all debate.
10% of the population of the United States identifies as Irish right now. That's 34 million people. Now, if you were to take even 1% of those people and tell them, actually, you're not American, go home. It's the same principle. It's the exact same principle. This kid does not have Chinese citizenship. So he's in limbo.
Yes, I know he is. I'm aware of the circumstances here. But the reason this law was, this referendum passed so substantially, 79.17% voted yes in this particular referendum back in 2004. The reason people voted so strongly in that direction was because we did have, a lot of it is anecdotal, but there was definitely cases of it, of basically birth tourism, where people were coming to Ireland, having babies, and then being allowed to stay because their children were Irish citizens.
Absolutely. Not disputing that at all. Now, what I'm saying is, this is not a law that you're just going to change one aspect of it. Illegal immigration is an issue, and that should be dealt with. But this kid is as Irish as you or me. It's as simple as that. This kid, if you spoke to him on a telephone... Okay,
but Daniel, actually...
If you didn't see a picture... Go on.
Okay, you're saying people would vote differently now. And a couple of people have just texted me to ask me to do a quick poll. So let's do that, okay?
Hold on. So, what are you voting for, first off? Because there's different things here. I'm not saying to vote. I'm not saying to let everybody in. I'm saying if there's a child born here, that they should have certain entitlements. Now, one thing you can do is take a leaf from America's book.
Okay. Hang on there for 1 second. Here's the question that I want to ask. If we had a vote tomorrow to keep the current law or change the current law, what would you do? Let me explain the law as it currently stands. A child born in Ireland to foreign-born parents does not get automatic Irish citizenship. They used to, but they don't now, thanks to our referendum back in 2004. So the question that I want to ask is, if we were to have a vote tomorrow, would you keep the law or change the law? So what I want you to do is text the word keep. So in other words, keep the current law, which will see that young fella being deported out of the country, even though he's born and bred in Ireland, or change the law so that a young fella like that could be allowed to stay in Ireland. So what I want you to do is text me, so just by text message, please, text the word keep or the word change to 0877 98 98 98. Daniel is arguing that the country has changed dramatically in the last 14 years and people would vote differently. Let's see if you would. So once again, would you keep the law that kids born in Ireland to foreign-born parents are not entitled to automatic Irish citizenship? Would you keep that law or change it? Text keep or change to 0877 98 98 98. Okay, simple question. Text the word keep or the word change by text message to 0877 98 98 98. If you're sending a text, it's just a standard charge. It's not one of those premium rate text messages that other radio stations use. Okay? So once again, text the word keep or change. Now, Daniel, you were saying that you believe that Irish society has changed dramatically since that referendum in 2004.
Absolutely.
And what do you believe, if we were to have a vote on this tomorrow, what way do you believe people would vote?
It depends on the elements of what they're voting for. This is not a simple case of voting yes or no. There's different aspects of it that need to change. So what I was trying to say earlier was, in the United States, if you get permanent residency, for example, you're not allowed to vote. You're not entitled to social welfare. There's certain entitlements that you are not privy to.
Okay, let me ask you a question then. Do you believe that a child born in Ireland to foreign-born parents should be an Irish citizen?
Yes, I do.
Yes, you do.
Well, hold on a sec. Well, it's the fact that he's 9 years old.
It's a fairly straightforward. I just want a yes or no. That's the question I'm after asking.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, he should be an Irish citizen.
Yeah.
What if that were to lead to a resurgence in birth tourism, where people literally were getting off planes having babies?
Well, I mean, you asked me right there, pretty much blanket yes or no, and it's not as easy as that. If someone comes over here and they do not have the intention of having a child born in Ireland, or they don't plan on living here, that's very, very different. So birth tourism is a completely different thing. I'm talking about a child who was born here and raised here for 9 years. That's what we're talking about.
Okay, so maybe you'd have some sort of a cut-off point or whatever. Stay there for a second, Daniel. 6797 981 is our telephone number. You can text or WhatsApp 0877 98 98 98. Now, once again, I'm going to take a quick break, and during that break, you can send in your text if you haven't done so already. The current law in Ireland says that a child born in this country to foreign-born parents does not get automatic Irish citizenship. And this is affecting this little boy, Eric Ying-Zhu, who is in 4th class in St. Cronan's in Bray, born and lived in Ireland all his life, but he's facing deportation along with his mother. And we're asking, is that fair? But here's the question that I want to ask you. Our current law doesn't give him the right to Irish citizenship. Would you support keeping that law or changing that law? So what I want you to do is text the word keep or the word change to 0877 98 98 98. And the reason I'm doing that is Daniel is arguing that this country has changed dramatically in the 14 years since we had the referendum, passed by 79%. So once again, would you keep the current law or change the current law? That's all I want you to do. Text the word keep or change to 0877 98 98 98. I'll give you the results of that poll straight after the break. We're in the middle of a conversation all to do with whether or not we should have a look again at our current laws on citizenship here in Ireland. The Minister for Justice, Charlie Flanagan, has said that the current rules that someone born here to foreign parents does not get automatic citizenship is not about to be reviewed anytime soon. It was passed by a majority of people in a 2004 referendum, 79% to 21%. It was a fairly significant difference. But we have, is it Daniel? Yeah, Daniel on the line, who believes that 14 years later, Ireland has changed so dramatically that people would vote differently if we were to have a similar debate again. Daniel, what way do you think people would vote if we were to have a similar vote again?
Well, I don't think it's a simple case of flipping the law. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about amending the law. So the whole point of immigration law is to protect the country, and that's the most important thing to do. I'm well aware that there was, this thing of people coming over here and having children here and going off and looking for certain entitlements. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying the law needs to be amended for situations like this.
Well, the question that I asked our listeners was, would you keep the current law, which is very clear that if you're born in Ireland to foreign-born parents, you don't get citizenship, or change the law, which could be, including what you're saying, have a review of it and change aspects of it. Here's the result of the poll. Bearing in mind that 79% in 2004 voted yes in that constitutional referendum, in our poll today, with one of the highest volume of texts we've ever gotten for a poll, and that's without exaggeration, 76% of people have said they would keep the current law. So the country hasn't changed that dramatically. 76%.
I mean, putting out a poll on the radio without any information or education on a subject is very different.
That's so. Daniel, do you know how patronising that sounds to the people who are listening to us right now? That they haven't a clue what you're talking about.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that.
Okay, all right, but it is an indication of the fact that people want things to remain as they are. 76% in our poll.
Yeah, I would say I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm saying that if there was actually non-biased information, put out information on both sides that were for both, and gave people an actual chance to look into the law in plain black and white and see certain aspects. For example, there's one part of that law where the child is automatically entitled to citizenship if he's not eligible for citizenship in a different country. So I don't know what the dynamic is with the kid in China. I don't know if his father's Chinese or if he's entitled to citizenship. I assume he is because his mother's Chinese. But if he's not entitled to citizenship in China, he is automatically entitled to citizenship in Ireland.
Okay, and maybe that is something that's being looked into. Stay there for a second. Irene, you're on 98 FM. How are you, Irene?
Hello, Adrian. How are you?
Irene, you can empathise with this little boy and his plight, but your point is that the law is the law.
The law is the law, yeah. And that gentleman that's speaking to you there, Daniel, he was bringing up the 2004 referendum. If he doesn't remember that, he wouldn't remember what was happening. And you were exactly right, Adrian, in what you said. You were literally coming off boats and planes in this country and having babies to get citizenship, and that's a known fact. If you want to get
we know all that. We've already discussed that, and that was one of the reasons that referendum passed. So
that was a fact. We even had people from the hospital, maternity hospitals, coming out about it. But apart from that, what is wrong in this country is it's taken too long to go through the procedure. You know what I mean? This has to be changed.
Yes, so in other words, a child should never have been able to stay in Ireland that long, his whole life becomes Ireland, and it is. But okay, let me look at a specific case like this young fellow, okay? And there have been a couple of examples of this over the last couple of years.
And then you have to, let's say...
Pardon me?
They have let some say we're all just putting out these numbers before for children.
Okay, firstly, I agree with you that we should never be in a situation that it takes 10 years to hear a family's case for being allowed to stay in the country.
And also, Adrian, they're using the system all the way back up to the Supreme Court, which has taken years. And it should be, you're not allowed in, when you're heard, that's it, bye. Not this, you can use the whole jurisdiction system and say, I'm keep going to that court, I'm going back to that court. That should be abolished.
Okay, I agree with all of that. I don't think it should take 9 years. But looking at a case like this little boy, shouldn't he be allowed to stay?
But you see, I would agree in one way, but then what do you do with everybody else? Do you know what I mean, Adrian?
You think this will open the floodgates?
Absolutely. Sure. The people made the decision. That's it. My point is that it will open the floodgates. What I can't understand is it's the first Chinese person I'm hearing getting deported. You know what I mean? And they own the whole north side of the city. I can't understand what's going on. In any other country, in England, you're deported, that's it. And I can't understand. It's costing taxpayers millions in this country.
Okay, stay there for 1 second and let me bring in one last call. Peter, you're on Dublin's 98 FM. How are you, Peter?
How's it going, Adrian?
Peter, what's your view on this case?
Well, the fourth caller you had on was saying that the referendum was passed. And he's correct. The referendum was passed. That's it. What everybody seems to be forgetting about that referendum was it was written into the clause of the referendum that in future cases, if this was to pop up, the Oireachtas and the minister has the power to change it.
Correct.
You don't need another vote. You don't need another vote, and then the next caller, not that lady there, the other guy after, well, I wasn't old enough to vote in that, so we should have another vote. Well, Adrian, I wasn't old enough to vote in half of the stuff that went on in the States. So does that mean we should change all the laws because I wasn't old enough to vote?
No, I mean, in fairness, Daniel, that's a reasonable point. We just have to... we have to live by the laws of our forefathers until we eventually change them.
Exactly, like the abortion one. Everybody, it took 40 years, do you know what I mean? And this thing on with the forward is only starting to be a problem now. So it could take another 30 or 40 years for people to change it. This guy thinking, oh no, because I think like this, everybody else thinks like that.
That's not what I'm talking about.
That's not how it works.
That's not what I'm talking about.
I kind of agree with people coming off the plane and having a baby. I kind of agree with the referendum was passed. That's it. We have to deal with it. But if somebody's here 9 years, and like I've had a friend of mine, he's a pro-lifer. He basically said he's not white and he has no bloodline to Ireland, so he has no right to stay. And I literally looked him in the face and I said, you do realise there was a nation in Europe who started to do that type of stuff, and look where we ended up. They call it blood and soil. Like, the chap, doesn't matter if he's black, white, yellow, brown, pink, blue. So I don't care if he's bleeding multicoloured. He's here. He thinks he's Irish. He was born and bred in this country. Okay, his man, whatever, got here illegally. As I've heard from pro-lifers all the time, you can't blame a child for the mother's crime. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, so you believe that in cases like this, and by the way, the Minister for Justice does have the power to make exception. Yes, he does.
He has the power. So this whole circus of all the media talking about it and people doing petitions, people should do a petition and say to the Minister, I'm sorry, Minister, will you do your job? And if he doesn't answer, write to everybody in the Oireachtas and say, excuse me, this is a problem in the country that's getting up people's backs. Will you sort this? You have the power to sort it. Not like... It's ridiculous. The child is here 9 years, nearly 10 years, and the other lady saying, oh, you shouldn't be allowed to go up to this court.
Okay, so in this particular case...
if you abolish that, but that's the case then, like, everybody has the right to go to the Supreme Court and get a lower court's ruling disavowed from a higher court. That's the whole purpose of a court system. This boy should be allowed to stay. I guarantee you, if you give him a test, he thinks he's Irish. He probably thinks Daniel O'Connell is one of his bleeding ancestors.
Yes, of course, yes.
Do you know what I mean? So he's Irish. He's here. He's Irish. He should be allowed to stay. It shouldn't be a rigmarole. And the people in the minister's constituency should be turning around to him and saying, if you don't sort this, you have no job come the next election.
Mind you, having said all of that, Peter, 76% of people in our poll want to leave the law as it is.
This is where I'll fall back to, within that referendum, it was written into that as a clause. It can be amended by the Oireachtas.
Yes, it can. Yes, that's correct.
Without going to the people for a vote. So what we need to do is get this petition over 500,000 signatures is what you need, and then say we want the law changed. And then if you don't want to change the law, just say, right, okay, we'll see you in the polls next year after the Brexit, because there's a general election coming, and then they'll start pooping their pants.
All right, thanks very much indeed, Peter. And by the way, if you're interested in that petition, over 52,000 people have signed it, and this is the petition that St. Cronin School in Bray put up to support this little boy, this 9-year-old who's in 4th class in St. Cronin's in Bray. Born and lived all his life in Ireland. His mother had her application to remain in the state rejected. And if you are interested in signing that petition, it is on change.org. I found it by just searching for Eric on change.org. This is 98 FM's Dublin Talks. I'm Adrian Kennedy. We're here until midday today. Now, on the way after the break, I have a message. And the summary of the message is... Little boy wants to dress up as Princess Moana, Princess Moana, she's a Disney princess. Wants to dress up as Princess Moana for Halloween. Little boy is 7 years old. The other night, as we were putting him to bed, he told myself and my husband he wants to dress up as Princess Moana for Halloween. And the thing is that he is now going on about it and wanting to be Moana, but my husband is refusing point blank to let that happen. My husband says that little boys don't dress as princesses and that he will be making a target out of himself for other kids and bullies. Now my husband is even trying to direct our son's attention to boys' costumes by showing him Superman, Batman, cowboys and any other male costumes. I don't see any problem whatsoever with my little boy wanting to dress up as a princess. Likewise, if a girl wanted to dress up as a cowboy or Superman, but my husband is really against it. He actually feels extremely strongly about it. Can you please ask your listeners if they would have a problem with this, or is this just completely ridiculous? So, it's something we have spoken about before. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, our Jeremy saying absolutely no way would he let his young fella. Here's the thing. When you're dressing up at Halloween, you're dressing up as something that you're not. Okay? Whether that be... I mean, my favourite costume when I was a young fella was dressing up as a lampshade. And my daughter did it as well. When she was younger. But I'm not a lampshade, but I dressed up as a lampshade. So what's the difference? When you're dressing up as a kid for Halloween, you're dressing up as something that you're not. So surely that includes a princess. Call me right now on 6797 7-year-old boy wants to dress up as a little princess. If you're a dad, would you have a problem with your little boy wanting to do that? Because this guy definitely does. Call me right now on 6797 You can text or WhatsApp your opinion to 0877 98 98 98.
98 FM's Dublin Talks.
With Des Kelly Interiors. New carpets fitted in time for Christmas. DesKelly.ie.
98 FM.
We got a message from one of our listeners, and this is a debate we did have in the past, but let's have it again. Why not? Carol wrote to us. My little 7-year-old boy, the other night, we were putting him to bed, and he told myself and my husband that he wants to dress up as Princess Moana for Halloween. Now, I'm told that she's not actually a princess. I haven't seen the film Moana, so I don't know what she is. But, well, according to Wikipedia, Moana is a strong-willed daughter of a chief of a Polynesian village. And it's a Disney cartoon, and she looks like she's from the South Pacific, and she wears South Pacific-looking clothes. But she is a she. That's the point. The thing is, he's now going on about wanting to be Moana, but my husband is refusing point blank to let that happen. My husband says that little boys don't dress like princesses and that he will be making a target out of himself for other kids and bullies. Here's the question. Whether it's a princess or whatever it is, surely it's okay for a little boy to dress up as a girl or for a little girl to dress up as a boy. Because all of dressing up is being something that you're not. Call me right now on 6797 Eddie, you're on 98 FM. How are you, Eddie?
Morning, Adrian. You well?
I'm good, thanks, Eddie. Eddie, it says on my screen, no way would you let that happen.
Listen, Adrian, give him a Yorkie and some man-sized tissues for his issues. No way. No way. I'm with the husband on this one. You're only going to get bullied. He'd never live it down. The photos be all over Facebook when he's older. Nah, no way. Sorry,
bullied for what? For dressing up?
Yeah. Kids are horrible to each other. Kids are the worst bullies. He'll never live that down. Nah, I wouldn't. I'm sorry. I wouldn't.
So,
no way.
You'd let a little boy dress up as a train driver or dress up as Superman, but if he wanted to dress up as a female character out of a movie...
I wouldn't let him, no. Under no circumstances, no. No. He's only 7. He doesn't realise the hell of the torment he's let himself in for.
But like I said to you, Eddie...
Don't care, Adrian. You can say whatever you want. I don't care. I wouldn't let it happen.
All of dressing up is being something that you're not.
Yeah. Well, he can dress up as something else, but he's not dressing up as a girl. Simple as.
And what about a girl dressing up as something boyish?
I wouldn't be as bad on that. I don't know what it is. It's just the way it is, because I know what lads are like, and I know he's going to get bullied forever.
Now this child's only 7.
Yeah, at 7. I mean, come on. No. I don't have kids, but I've got a nephew that age, and if he... Well, I know he wouldn't, but if he came into the house dressed as a bird, he'd just get ruined. And I know his mates would do the same. You know what I mean? He'd just leave himself open for abuse.
Okay, but why are we putting this all on a kid? The kid obviously loves the movie Moana. I haven't seen it myself. Yeah. But I can imagine what it's like as a Disney movie. And because
I know what kids are like, and I know even as much as he has the best night of his life, he's going to regret it in the long run. As soon as he falls out with someone or he goes to school, he'll always be the target of the jokes. So, no.
Okay, stay there for 1 second, Eddie. 6797981 is our telephone number. You can text or WhatsApp your opinion to 0877 98 98 98. And yes, I know you don't have to keep writing in. Moana isn't a princess. She's a high chief's daughter. Yeah, okay. The fact is she's female. Moana is. And this little boy wants to dress up as Moana out of the 2016 Disney movie. I'd have to make me business now to watch that. Actually, one disadvantage to your kids growing up is you don't get to watch Disney films anymore. Natalia, you're on 98 FM. Hiya, Natalia.
Hey, Adrian.
Now, you are a mother of 5.
A mother of 5-year-old.
Oh, sorry. A mother of a 5-year-old. It says mother of 5 on my screen. Sorry. A mother of a 5-year-old. Yeah. And is your 5-year-old a boy or a girl?
He is a boy.
He's a boy. Okay. So your little 5-year-old boy says to you, Mammy, I would like to dress up as Moana or any other female Disney character. What do you say to your 5-year-old boy?
Definitely no.
Definitely no.
No. I disagree with that, and I agree with your woman's husband. He'd be just ridiculed.
Ridiculed honestly. By who?
By kids his age, be it older. See, he'd be in the crowd with other kids, bigger kids, smaller kids, and once one starts laughing, everyone will start pick on it. So I disagree. If my child came in and told me he wants to be a princess, it'd be straight no. No, you can be a superhero, but not a princess. Princesses for girls. I mean, we're into the image where...
No, but Natalia, the point I was making a couple of minutes ago is dressing up is being something that you're not. And even if that's a boy or a girl, what difference does it make? It's dressing up. It's fancy dress.
I don't know. It's a society we live in. That's what it comes down to.
Okay, for example, we had a listener's Halloween party a couple of years ago, okay? And I dressed up as an old granny. Okay? With grey hair and an old granny's dress and everything else. It was a great old costume. What is the difference between me doing that and a little boy dressing up as Moana?
We're adults. These are kids.
You see, I'm not really seeing the difference, I have to be honest with you. Dressing up is dressing up.
Every boy, right, in the class, if there is a class with the boys, with 20 boys, right? And each and every one wants to be a superhero, a Superman, Batman, you name it, whatever, as long as it's a male figure. And then there is an odd one who wants to be a princess. He'd be singled out.
Okay, let me ask then, if your little boy wanted to dress up in the sort of costume that I was wearing, which was an old granny with grey hair and a walking stick and everything else, would you let him do that?
No, not really, to be honest with you.
No?
No.
Okay, stay there for 1 second. So just no. Boys dress as boy things, girls dress as girl things, end of story.
Exactly.
Okay, stay there for a second, Natalia. 6797981 is our telephone number. Text or WhatsApp 0877 98 98 98. 0877 98 98 98. Lads, I've just lost all of the calls there, have I? Oh. Sorry. Melissa, are you there? Oh, no, Melissa's not there. Oh, so you are there. How are you, Melissa?
Yeah.
Now, Melissa, what's your view on this? And Natalia is saying, no means no.
Well, I have a little boy, and I think that it's important for them to be able to express themselves, whether that be he wants to dress as a woman or a man or whatever. You know, I just think it's very important to encourage children to be able to express themselves, because we do live in a society where men are... being strong is being silent, you know, that they're not encouraged to speak out when they're not, you know, in that kind of way. And I just feel that they should be able to express themselves.
And if expressing themselves means a boy dressing up as a girl character or a girl dressing up as a WWE wrestler, then there should be no problem with that.
No, I mean, to be honest with you,
it's bizarre because there's no problem with women or little girls dressing up as pirates or you know, like you say, wrestlers and stuff. But for some reason, there's a big stigma about boys dressing as something feminine. It shouldn't be that way. They should be allowed to express themselves.
Natalia, if a little girl wanted to dress up as a pirate, nobody would even think twice about that.
Yeah, but like I said, it's because the society we live in, we're all going by the standard image. The boy is a boy and the girl is a girl, and they're supposed to act accordingly.
They're supposed to act accordingly.
But that's what it is. If it wasn't
but do you think that's right?
I disagree with it. But this is what the world we live in. Now, if it wasn't for me thinking, right, my child is going to get picked on if anyone sees him in the dress, I probably would let him, like you said, express himself. But because this is not acceptable in many eyes, I would never let him even go through that.
You see, Melissa, the point that has been made by a number of callers is that a child is going to get bullied. A child is going to get picked on if he or she, well, mainly he, if he dresses up as a girl character.
Which he would.
You could say the same that, yeah, but then, you know, if a boy doesn't have the right haircut, he might get picked on. If the boy isn't wearing the right clothes, he might get picked on. Kids are going to get picked on regardless whether they're in the dress or not. You know,
yeah, but this is Halloween. This is where you see boys being boys and the girls being whatever they want to be. This is sort of occasion where everyone is going to be in a massive group being dressed as their favorite character. So this is just
favorite. If his favourite character is Moana, then what's the harm? If he's surrounded by friends and he's going to a party, then they're obviously not going to pick on him, are they?
Right, but it's no harm for us who would probably have a sense of understanding. But but to other kids his age, they wouldn't understand that. They don't understand that.
Okay, let me ask you, Melissa. I just gotten a message a second ago. I was saying about a fancy dress party, a listeners' party we had a couple of years ago, and I dressed up as an old granny with grey hair and a walking stick and everything else, right? And you know, it's a female, and a message just came in and says, the difference is, Adrian, you're old enough to take the recriminations. A child is not able for the slagging. A kid is not able for it. And that's the difference. What do you say to that, Melissa?
Well, again, I wouldn't put my child at any kind of risk. If he was going to a party with friends and he wanted to dress up as Moana, then he's going to a safe environment. He's going to friends. I mean, yes, he might get the odd comment of, "Oh, you're dressed as a girl," but you know, if he had the wrong haircut, he would get picked on. If he was wearing the wrong clothes, he would get picked on.
In other words, kids get picked on, full stop.
Yeah, kids are going to pick on kids, regardless of what if they're wearing a dress or if they're wearing normal clothes. Kids are cruel to each other.
Oh, okay, Natalia, let me read this message to you, and it says, maybe people should teach their children that it should be acceptable, and maybe teach them not to bully the kid that dresses up as a princess or whatever the case may be.
I agree with that, but then we have to start from adults and not kids, and it's going to take a long time for this to change. Because it's adults it's adults that have that image. It's adults that end up making that choice for that child. No, you can't be this, but you can't be that. So it's going to take a long time for this to change, because it starts from us. It doesn't start from kids.
But it seems to me, Natalia, that you're the one with the problem. No?
I wouldn't call that. I wouldn't call that I have a problem. But like I said, I know what the world is out there like, and I wouldn't put my child into risk.
Okay, let me read out some of your messages that are coming in on this. So, if a boy dresses up as someone like Puff Daddy or something like that, and went the whole hog, including makeup, to change their skin colour, is that racist? Kind of slightly off conversation. It's a fancy dress day, says this message. He doesn't want to wear a dress as a woman every day, for God's sake. Do these people really think that the boy hasn't told all his friends he wants to dress as Moana? They know whether he does it or not, says Joe. By the way, I do apologise to you. I know loads of you, we've loads and loads of calls coming in on this, and I'm going to have to come back to this tomorrow because we've had some major technical issue with our phone system. So I will come back to this tomorrow morning on the programme. So if you did ring in, we will get back to you tomorrow. But let me read another message. Let kids dress up as whatever they want. My son, who is now 12 in first year, dressed up as a girl when he was 10 in national school. He has blonde hair and blue eyes, and he made the most striking... Sorry, the message has gone off my screen. He made the most striking girl you could imagine. Far from being ridiculed, his friends thought it was brilliant. He won the prize for the best dressed, and the teachers still talk about him this time of year, that he made the cutest girl. So I think let the kid do what he wants. Most other kids will look at it with envy. They didn't think of it. You will get the odd twit who will make a laugh of him, but they will also make a laugh of a kid coming in as Batman for not doing something different, says Paul. So once again, I know Katie's telling me that our switch is absolutely crammed with calls. But unfortunately, due to some technical issue, we can't ring back the calls. So for those of you who have rung in, we will get that technical issue fixed, and we will get back to you tomorrow. So we will continue this conversation on tomorrow morning's programme, because there's huge interest in it by the sounds of it. Anyway, that's it from us for today. Listen, if you want to get in contact with us and on other matters other than that, and we will continue that conversation tomorrow, you can send us an email right now. Our email address is Dublin Talks at 98fm.com. Dublin Talks at 98fm.com. You can also send us a private message through our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Adrian K and Jeremy D. We'll return to that conversation tomorrow. Barry Dunn is on the way in just a moment. And in the next hour, he's got some great music lined up, like these.
98FM's Dublin Talks.
With Des Kelly Interiors. New wood flooring fitted in time for Christmas. DesKelly.ie.
98FM.